you will be expected to calculate the number of electrons in an ion, and you can do that based on the charge and the number of protons, which is the atomic number. To determine the number of electrons in an ion, subtract the charge from the number of protons, or atomic number. Let's look at the example of capital C, lowercase a, or calcium, plus 2. Looking at the periodic table, we see that calcium has an atomic number of 20, and thus has 20 protons. Subtracting the charge of positive 2 from the atomic number of 20 gives us a value of 18 electrons. This makes sense since the charge of plus 2 means there are 2 more protons than electrons. You try it. Determine the number of protons and electrons for the following ions: capital O, or oxygen, minus 2, capital A, lowercase l, or aluminum, plus 3, and capital M, lowercase n, or manganese, plus 5. Also, identify each as a cation or an anion. Let's see how you did. Our first example is oxygen with a charge of minus 2. Since this ion has a negative charge, it is an anion. According to the periodic table, oxygen has an atomic number of 8 and thus 8 protons. When I subtract the charge of negative 2 from the atomic number of 8, I get a total of 10 electrons. This makes sense since our charge of negative 2 means there are 2 more electrons than protons. The next example is aluminum plus 3. Since the charge is positive, this is a cation. According to the periodic table, aluminum has an atomic number of 13, which means it has 13 protons. To determine the number of electrons, we subtract the charge of plus 3 from the atomic number of 13 to obtain 10 electrons. This makes sense since the charge of plus 3 means there are 3 more protons than electrons in this ion. The last example is manganese plus 5. Since this is a positive charge, this is a cation. According to the periodic table, manganese has an atomic number of 25 and thus 25 protons. To determine the number of electrons, we subtract the charge of positive 5 from the atomic number of 25 and obtain 20 electrons. This makes sense since the charge of positive 5 means there are 5 more protons than electrons.